Due to the success of Tactics Ogre Reborn and the influx of growth that I've seen here on the channel as a result of it, there's been a lot of discussion about the overall genre of turn-based strategy RPGs, tactical RPGs, however you want to think about them, and how we've been seeing a bit of a resurgence, especially the last year or two, with a lot of games coming out of Square Enix in particular that are in that genre, both new and reprised. So today I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about some of the topics that I've seen cropping up in the comments of my videos or in my stream chats, things like that, or even just in the internet at large, thanks to the success of Tactics Ogre Reborn and also by things like Triangle Strategy and things like that. So let's talk about it. Hello everyone, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Today's video is obviously not a guide or anything like that, but it's more of a meta look at how turn-based strategy RPGs as a whole are doing in the modern day. Don't worry though, I do have a new guide coming for Tactics Ogre Reborn. It is a general approach to battling bosses due to the increased challenge that they present in this version of the game, featuring my battle against High Commander Zabos as sort of a grounding point. So that'll be coming. I'm aiming to have that out by Thursday at the latest, so look forward to that. Lots of other guide content coming, no worries, but I wanted to have this discussion today because it's something that I've been seeing crop up a lot. Also, hey, I'm going to talk about it in that boss guide as well, but we broke 5K. Holy crap, I'll go more in detail with it there, but just I wanted to acknowledge it since this video is going to be coming out first. Guys, thank you so much. A little bit of a more informal video here today. I hope you don't mind a little bit of a discussion. So, Tactics Ogre Reborn. Obviously doing extremely well. It's done extremely well for the channel. As a game itself, it has been doing very, very well. I haven't seen more recent data about how it's performing overall, but it is very highly reviewed. From everything that I've been seeing, it's got 80s and above from pretty much all sources, and it's very well received by the community at large. That's awesome to see. It's doing great. And in terms of sales, it seems to also be doing really well. I know one of the most notable things to come out back in the middle of November was that Tactics Ogre Reborn actually outsold God of War in Japan, which was wild, and then apparently also beat Sonic Frontiers. So, I mean, those are big, high-profile releases that Tactics Ogre managed to beat. That's awesome. That's incredible. So it shows that there is a demand for these types of games. The physical copies are selling very, very well, and I want to see more of that information come out in the coming weeks and months to see where it falls overall, but based on the advertising that they're still doing for it on Twitter and things like that, I'm assuming that it is doing quite well, which is awesome. As part of that, there's kind of been a discussion cropping up about what other games are we going to potentially see brought back. Obviously, the big one is Final Fantasy Tactics. Will we see a FFT Reborn type of thing come out? And for those of you who don't know, this is something I've talked about a lot on stream with people. It is extremely likely that FFT Reborn or some equivalent project is in the works and is going to be coming out. If you didn't know, there was a big GeForce Now leak, God, probably, 2 years ago, I think, that revealed a ton of games that were in the works, things that were being developed, things that were being ported to PC, that were maybe PlayStation exclusive, things like that, remakes, sequels, all sorts of fun stuff. And in the intervening years, the vast majority of those quote-unquote reveals or leaks came true. Most notable for our discussion, Tactics Ogre Reborn was on that list. Obviously, we now know that Tactics Ogre Reborn is a thing. It was not just like a port, but a full reimagining of the game. Awesome. What's fun to note is that alongside Tactics Ogre Reborn, there was an as-of-yet unnamed Final Fantasy Tactics remake or remaster project. So, it stands to reason, if Tactics Ogre Reborn was actually a thing that is now actually physically in our hands, that FFT Reborn, quote-unquote, could very well be coming down the pipe. Now, what we don't know, because I personally do think that it's happening, I think it'll probably be like next year around this time, we'll either hear about it or we'll see it released. They're going to give Tactics Ogre time to breathe, of course. What we don't know is exactly what the scope of that project is going to be. A little concerningly for me, Yasumi Matsuno on Twitter seems to have kind of been implying that Reborn might be his last big game project. I mean, you know, famous directors and game developers and artists and writers and et cetera, musicians often kind of wind up in this situation where they're like, oh, this is my last one, and then they wind up making more and more and more. Hayao Miyazaki being one of the most notable ones in my mind. Man said he was going to be done like 5 movies ago, and yet he keeps putting them out. So, but if Yasumi Matsuno was not going to do any more games projects, does that mean that we won't have him on board for a big FFT remake? Maybe. Is that cause for concern? Maybe. It really depends on what they'd be doing with Tactics. Ideally, I would love to see it get the Reborn treatment, really breathe new life into the game as my favorite game of all time. I'm sure you can imagine why I would like to see that. But if they don't go for that, if they just do like a remake, remaster, they wouldn't necessarily need Matsuno on board for that, or at least in as big of a role as he had on Tactics Ogre Reborn. So we'll have to see what actually winds up being the case with FFT. I will be happy even if we just get like a remaster that's well done that winds up on PC. That would still be great. We've been needing that and crying for that for literally a decade since War of the Lions came out. God, what, 2007 now? We're coming up on 20 years since that came out. Like, holy smokes. So yeah, even if we just got FFT remastered, I still think that'd be fine. I think that'd be perfectly acceptable. I would love to see more, but even if that's all that it is, that's still fine by me. That'll still be a huge win for the overall strategy RPG community out there. Obviously, that's something I'll be covering on the channel. I've got all sorts of content that I can make about that. So either way, I do think it's happening. We just need to wait and see what form that takes. Of course, we also have a lot of discussion about other more niche titles in the genre that either have come back or people would like to see come back. Front Mission, obviously a big one. I've covered it a little bit here on the channel. Probably going to cover it a little bit more. We've got 1 out, 2 and 3 confirmed. 4 and 5 maybe down the line, depending on how 2 and 3 do. Kind of up in the air. But that's not one that people, I think, ever expected to see come back. And it did. And it's good. Like, it's a good remaster / partial remake of what seems to be a very popular game. I never played the original version, but a lot of people have been very happy to see it come back. And a lot of people are very excited to see 2 and 3 come back, which seem to be a lot of people's favorites. So that's going to be cool to see as well. With that, I've had questions like, do I think Shining Force will come back? Vandal Hearts, other more niche, lesser-known strategy RPGs. And I mean, it certainly seems possible. There's a lot of demand for the genre. There's a lot of nostalgia attached to a lot of these games. Like, these are games that people played when they were kids that they don't even really realize that they played. But then they see it and they're like, oh my god, I played this. This game was awesome. I loved it when I was a kid, but I forgot about it. So I do think there's a market there. Will those things happen? I don't know. It might depend largely on how Tactics Ogre Reborn does and then smaller projects like Front Mission do. But the fact that we've got those projects coming out and receiving a lot of attention tells me that it's possible. What also tells me that it's possible is how strong 2 other aspects of the scene have been. And those 2 aspects are the indie scene and then the much larger scale, I would say closer to AAA scene, more like AA, I guess. But so let's talk about the indie scene. 2 games that I've talked about a lot recently, due to all the people coming in, playing Tactics Ogre Reborn, looking for other games in the genre as well, are Dark Deity and A Symphony of War, both of which you can get on Steam. Dark Deity, I know, is also on the Switch. I don't know that Symphony of War is on any other platform. But those are 2, in my opinion, very good indie titles that I've played extensively, both of them. Not on the channel particularly. There's a little bit of Dark Deity on the channel, but they're a lot of fun. Dark Deity takes a lot of inspiration from Fire Emblem. Symphony of War takes a lot of inspiration from a mix of games. It's got some Fire Emblem in there, it's got some Final Fantasy Tactics in there, and notably, it actually has some original Ogre Battle in there with the squad systems and things like that. And it's just so clear that these games are so beloved by the people who make them, and then they also garner a lot of attention from the indie communities who would be aware of games in the genre. So It shows that there is that demand, and I'm glad to see that the bigger studios like Square Enix are paying attention to that now. There's another game, Felseal Arbiter's Mark, that I've played a little bit of that clearly takes huge inspiration from Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre. That, as far as I know, did quite well in the indie scene, so the demand is there. It just took a little bit of time, it seems, for the big studios to kind of catch on. But now that they have, that's the other part of the scene that I want to talk about, where we've got things like Triangle Strategy, Dealfield Chronicles, the upcoming Metal Slug Tactics, which is a big surprise to see coming, but that a lot of people are very excited for. Even Nintendo bringing back things like Advance Wars, which it needs to release from delay hell. It's been in delay hell long enough. The game is done. Put it out, please, for the love of God. But we're seeing these titles come out, and again, much like the indie titles, they're receiving a lot of attention and a lot of hype. Triangle Strategy, for me, is one of my Game of the Year candidates. It doesn't quite beat things like Elden Ring, but if things like Elden Ring hadn't come out, in terms of new releases, Triangle Strategy would probably be at the top for me. It is a phenomenal entry in the genre. Dealfield Chronicles is a little bit different in the way it executes things. It has a little bit more of a real-time vibe to it, but it was still a lot of fun. I played the 3-ish hour-long demo, and it was great. I really enjoyed it, more than I expected to. Haven't gotten around to picking it up yet, just because I don't have the time, but I expect that I will enjoy it once I do. The Metal Slug Tactics, like, whoever would have thought that we would see a Metal Slug game in the tactics genre? No one. I don't think anyone ever did. And, like, I'm not a big Metal Slug fan. I've never played any of the games, but you know I'm going to play Metal Slug Tactics, because it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. It just goes to show, with all of these new games coming out, including games splitting off into new genres into the genre that they never existed in before. It shows that these companies are paying attention and recognize that there is a market here. One of the other things that I want to talk about is the release and success of Super Robot Wars in the Western market. And again, this is a niche title. I know some people have played it, a lot of people haven't. But the release of SRW 30th for the 30th anniversary of the series did extremely well. It was the first release to come to Steam, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. Had like a full Western translation and everything, not for the voice acting, but for the whole script, which is huge. And the game has done exceedingly well. I'm pretty sure it's outsold any other release in the series to date. And I am quite confident in saying that it has cemented there will be many other entries in the series going forward. And that's wild. Like, I'm someone who's been playing Super Robot Wars since I was in high school, and that was like the niche of the niche. Like, I had to import PS2 discs from Japan with a modded PS2 to play. And now to be at this point, years later, is mind-blowing to me. So there's a lot of demand, and there's a lot of desire, and there's a lot of people, I think, getting into the genre now with things like Triangle Strategy and Tactics Ogre Reborn, and that means that there's money. And where there's money, we know companies will go. So I think the genre is in a very, very good spot. For all of you fans of the more niche games out there, like your Vandal Hearts and your Shining Forces and things like that, I would not lose hope. I would actually have hope that there might just be revivals of those series. And if they're even at the level of the Front Mission release, let alone Tactics Ogre Reborn, they should be very good. So I'm excited to see what's coming. I kind of just wanted to take this chance to talk about how turn-based strategy RPGs are doing, how I think they're going to continue to do going forward, the big resurgence that the genre has seen. And I mean, geez, like Fire Emblem Engage is coming out. That's going to be a big release. There's a new Disgaea coming out. There's so much in a genre that's been largely barren beyond the indie scene for so long. So I hope you guys are feeling as hopeful about it as I am. We'll just have to see how it goes, of course. Look forward to that Final Fantasy Tactics remake, re-release, remaster, whatever it's going to be, and a lot of other stuff coming on the horizon, both here on the channel and in the genre at large. I think we have a lot to look forward to. With that said, though, I'm going to wrap this up here. Thank you guys for watching. Again, new guide coming Thursday. Bosses, look out for that. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.